Jim, I really appreciate it. It's awesome to be here with you. You talk about biscuits, and it's getting me hungry because Alabama was just voted the fattest state in the union.
Mm.
So, just so you know, we know how to do biscuits and gravy. And you guys that are up north, I see we have people from all the way from New Hampshire to Washington down to Florida. So, we've got people joining us all across the country. So, come to Alabama, we will teach you how to eat grits, how to do biscuits and gravy, and that's one at least one thing we're good at here: football and eating. So we can handle those two categories.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's no, it's really good to be here, and really looking forward to the opportunity this evening to share with you guys something that has really impacted me greatly, and I know it has Jim. We've got a lot of people here that are in different levels and different understandings of the infinite banking concept. What I call it is using a savings tool to help us save the day. That was the title. And really what that means is understanding how different things are today and why we need to think differently. Jim told you a little bit about our firm. We've been around since 1973. A traditional financial planning firm managing over $1 billion in assets. And after meeting Nelson Nash, who Jim's going to tell you a little bit more about, we had a paradigm shift at our firm and really began to change our focus to understanding the difference between savings and investing. And so what you're going to have here tonight is I'm going to talk about savings on a 101 level. And then we're going to kick it over to Jim to talk about how to use a savings tool to create wealth and to protect your wealth and to protect your business in times like these, when we have low interest rate environment, when we have rising taxes, when we have a lot of uncertainty in the economy. And so my goal tonight and Jim's goal is to give you one or two ideas that you can take back, that generate questions for you, that you can get with who invited you to come tonight, ask questions and explore how these tools, how these ideas can help you, help protect your family, help protect your nest egg, and most importantly, continue to create wealth in a more risk-advantaged environment. So that's our goal tonight, Jim. Anything you want to add to that while I get to our screen here?
No, that was a great kickoff, and just in thinking of Nelson Nash, it's been about 13 months since Nelson graduated from this world, and there's not a day goes by that I don't think about the things that he taught us and the impact that he's had on our lives and thus our clients' lives as we share with them our experiences and Nelson's experiences and his wisdom. So I'm just excited to share it tonight.
Awfully special guy, man. And I'm like you, I miss him every day. In fact, he shared these two quotes with me, and I know he shared them with you, Jim. And I always start off every opportunity when I meet with a group like this. And I really particularly, if you look to the second one, Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them. And the reason I want to share that with you is because, again, Nelson Nash used to tell us that the first step in finding a solution is understanding the problem. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is we want to understand what is the problem today? How is it different than it was in the past? And once we understand those problems, the solution becomes extremely clear. And so let me give you an idea. Jim and I refer to where we are today. I call it the new economy. And all this really means is things are a lot different now. And I think we can really say this, especially after the last 6 to 8 weeks, Jim. Things are so different now than they were 10 years and 20 years ago. And I want to give you just a kind of an extreme example. I looked at where interest rates were in 1990, and Jim, the prime interest rate was around 10%. Well, today it's actually right around 3%, and it's trending lower. It's not looking like it's going up anytime soon. The Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates, as we all know, to almost 0. Why have they done that? They've done that because they want to try to free up liquidity and get money moving, get money flowing. And I don't want to steal Jim's thunder because he's going to talk about the importance of getting money in motion. But that's a lot different than where we were just 10 years ago, not to mention in 1990. Another example, and I'm going to tie all this together in a second. Another example is that the population today, there's almost 100 million Americans over the age of 55, where in 1990 it was just 45. So again, almost double the number of people moving into retirement, almost double the number of people that are on Social Security and moving toward that, almost double the people that are on Medicare and are using the government entitlement programs. Such a drastic difference than where we were in 1990. Today, life expectancy, because of medical advances, technology, the average life expectancy for a female today, Jim, is 86 years of age. For us guys, it's around 82 and a half. In 1990, that was 75 years of age. So again, 10, 11 years longer on Social Security, 10 or 11 years longer on Medicare, on Medicaid, 10 or 11 years longer that you have to utilize investments. And so it changes a lot from where we were. And the reason that I point all these things out is because it has to change our thinking, right? We're all looking at, well, how do we find new solutions in this new economy? And the first thing we have to do is we got to understand the problems and understand that the variables have changed. And these last two is something that I'm going to spend a lot of time on over the next 10 minutes, because I really want you to understand that taxes are changing. And the reason they're changing is because if you look at that national debt number, in 1990, we barely had $3 trillion of debt. And our debt was a very, very, very small percentage of our GDP, our gross domestic product. This was as of the end of 2019, our national debt was $23 trillion. And everybody on here I know has been paying attention to what's happened through this COVID-19 healthcare crisis and the amount of money that's being printed and the debt that is going on. We've had one stimulus bill that was 2.2 trillion. They've added another 500 billion to that. The Federal Reserve has promised that they will utilize the Treasury up to another $2 to $4 trillion with a T, excuse me. So what I'm telling you is this is already over 25 trillion and has the potential to go to 27, 28 trillion by the end of this year. And we have to understand what that does to us. And so we're going to look at that, but I want you to focus on income taxes, what that means to you, how that impacts where you're saving money, where you're investing money, and how you're doing that. Because Nelson Nash said one thing to me that matters, Jim, so much. And it's, Justin, do you care more about the gross return, the gross profit, or the net return and the net profit? And I think so many times, and I was guilty of this. Again, I managed money for 11 years before I even had the chance to meet Nelson. And it challenged a lot of my conventional thinking. And I really had to go back. But what I learned through walking through those exercises, Jim, is that he was exactly right. Most of our industry focuses on gross numbers before taxes, before fees, before, even before maybe the cost of insurance, if you're looking at that combination of buy term and invest the difference. But what should matter to every one of us is net. Again, we might get a check, and it's not the gross number that's on that check, it's the net that we can bring home, put in our pocket, spend, and take care of our families. So that's going to be a theme that I'm going to talk about for the next couple of minutes, and then we're going to kick it to Jim to talk about the practical application about where we're saving money. So I talked about the government, so I want to give you an example. This was the budget of the United States for 2019. So basically what this says is we brought in $3.6 trillion of revenue. We spent $4.7 trillion, and I'm rounding. Hope you're okay with that. So right away, Jim, we see that there's a big issue. So if I looked at this, Nelson Nash always used to tell us when we would sit and have coffee, he said, Justin, look at everything at the you and me level. And here's what he meant by that. If I could remove, 8 or 9 zeros from this, what this would show you is that if this was an average American household, they're bringing in $36,000 a year, and they're spending 47,000. Every single one of us on this call, from Washington to New Hampshire to Florida, could tell you that's a big, big problem. We've got to try to figure out a way to solve that problem. But then when you add on it the fact that there's over $23 trillion of debt. So to put that on the you and me level, this person's making $36,000 a year, spending 47, and they got 230,000 on a revolving credit card. That's where our American family is today. And the only way to solve this problem is we've got to figure out a way to create more income, what we would call create more revenue. So I want to ask you guys a question real fast. This is why I teach 101, because I ask real easy questions. If the government has to create more revenue to get out of this problem, how do they do that? They don't build anything. They don't sell anything. So ask yourself, how does a government create revenue? And the way they do it, we all know, is through taxation, right? And so I ask everybody, I've done hundreds of these workshops and Zoom meetings over the years, and I've never had a person answer this question but one way. I ask, based on what you've seen and based on the history of taxes over our lifetime, do you think taxes are going to go up or go down in the future? And so I want you to think about that just for a minute, because candidly, guys, taxes have nowhere to go but up. And so what we have to think about is, how does that impact where we're saving and where we're investing money today? Are we parking it in places that is going to be taxed in the future? Are we parking it in places where our compounding is taxed year after year after year? Or are there opportunities for us to be more tax efficient? Because if we can understand how to be more tax efficient, and people in my industry can't make these kind of claims lightly, I can show you how you can increase the return on your investment just by as much as 20 to 35% just in how we manage taxes. So I go back to what we talked about before. In 1990, in the late 90s, the wisdom was put everything you can in a tax deferred plan. And honestly, that made an awful lot of sense, a lot of common sense, because the idea was, while you're working, you're in a higher tax bracket. When you retire, you're in a lower tax bracket. So if I'm saving $1 and I'm in a 30% tax bracket, and when I pull it out, I'm in a 25% bracket, there's what we call an arbitrage in there. What that basically means is we just picked up a spread, right? We picked up a spread just by the tax bracket. I have one of the CPAs I work with on here tonight, and he shared with me in 2019, 80% of his clients in retirement are in the same or a higher tax bracket than what they were while they were working. And so why I tell you this is because how we address this problem is different than the way it used to be. So we've got to understand that taxes are going up in the future. In fact, the Tax Act of 2017, the tax cuts actually sunset in 2025. So the rates are actually going back to where they were before. Not to mention, with all the spending that's taken place with COVID-19, our taxes are heading up in the future. So if you can take action today, if I ask you this question, if you knew you had to pay a tax, would you rather pay it in a lower bracket or a higher bracket? Everybody on here, your answer is going to be, I want to pay it in a lower bracket, right? And if you know taxes are going up in the future, then why are you deferring money today for the privilege to pull money out in the future in a higher tax bracket? These are just a couple of things I want to challenge you with. Get with the person that invited you. See how some of this impacts your situation and where you're saving money. And candidly, you don't have to take my word for it. In fact, a gentleman by the name of David Walker, who wrote a book called Come Back America, he was quoted as saying, if significant fiscal reforms are not enacted in the United States, interest rates on our national debt will rise, and our federal taxes could easily double from their current levels by 2030. Now, guys, that's not too far away. That's less than 10 years away. Now, you might ask me, who is this guy? You know, Justin, I hear you say it. I hear Jim say it. Now, who is this guy, David Walker? David Walker was basically the CPA for our country for more than 10 years. He was the Comptroller General of the United States. He was the director of the Government Accountability Office. He was also, after this, a trustee for Social Security. So he has a very unique picture of where we are as a country. And he's a very credible source. And we actually, some of you may have been on there. We had the privilege of having him on our podcast and on a live Zoom meeting about 3 weeks ago. And this is what David Walker said. He said, Justin, taxes are going to have to go up because the government is not going to cut spending. They're never going to cut spending. And so the only way to create revenue is through taxation. And so I go back to just what I asked before. If we knew we had to pay a tax, wouldn't we rather pay it in a lower bracket than a higher bracket? So now let me take this one step further. There's only 3 places that we can store money, that we can park money, that we can save money and invest money. We call them tax today accounts. So these are your taxable accounts, a savings account, a CD, a money market. Maybe you have some investments that are in a non-retirement plan. We can save money in what we call tax deferred or tax tomorrow plans. These are 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, your business equity, maybe real estate. Some people in retirement utilize annuities. These are things that defer taxes. So again, I keep asking you, if you're saving or investing a large portion of your wealth there, how are taxes going to impact where you're parking your money, where you're warehousing and storing your wealth? Think about that as we move forward. And then thanks to Nelson Lash, we began to learn that there are tax-free accounts or tax-never accounts. These are Roth IRAs and then specially designed, properly structured life insurance contracts. Now I say properly structured because they've got to be designed the right way, not where you buy life insurance for a death benefit, because I want this to be clear, and I didn't understand this, and I was in the industry and got a finance degree and went through a lot of training in our industry. Traditionally, life insurance is bought for one reason. That's for a death benefit. And us as good Americans, we want to pay as little possible for that expense. So we put as little money in as possible to buy as big a death benefit as possible. And what you have is you may have a death benefit, but you've got a poor place to park money. It's not a very good performing investment. What Nelson Nash showed us, and that I didn't even understand, is that we can do the opposite. What we need to do is solve for as much money as we can put in a tax advantage plan and buy as little death benefit as the IRS will allow us. And now we create a tax plan or a tax shelter that, when structured the right way and working with guys like Jim and Nick and people that know how to use it, you can build an account that's structured the right way. You never have to worry about taxation. So again, you're focusing on the net. Every dollar to you is net of expenses, is net of insurance costs, and it's net of taxation. And so that's where we need to begin to look to build. If we've already got some money in bucket 1, tax today, and most every American has some in bucket 2, how do you begin to build bucket 3, and how can that work for you? So we're going to look at that. And what I'm going to talk about today, Jim, I'm going to leave the investing part to you and how to use the money, but I want everybody to understand that there's a clear definition, because our business has done a poor job of combining these two. I'll give you an idea. Savings and investing are really, really different. But if you know anyone that works for AT&T, their 401k plan is called the AT&T Savings Plan. Yet if you look at it by definition, there's not a savings vehicle or option anywhere amongst it, because savings is defined as money you can't afford to lose or you don't want to lose. It's earmarked for the future. That's why people say, I'm saving for a car. I'm saving for a down payment on a house. I'm saving for my child's education. However, investing is just the opposite. Investing is money that you can afford to take risk with. Risk is the possibility of loss. So you're accepting that you're moving up a level, that you're going to take risk with that money because you want the opportunity for a longer term return. That's what you're hoping for. And so these dollars are very different. And I will tell you that you need to understand the difference, and you need to decide, how much money do I want to save and how much money do I want to invest? And how can I utilize these two to work together to lower my risk and help me grow and increase wealth? And that's what the infinite banking concept is all about. So Jim, I'm gonna get you to help me out a little bit here, because usually what I do is I'll ask people, think about savings for a minute. Think about your money market, your CD, your savings account, bonds, something that you want to save money in. And then just give me the ideal, if you could wave a magic wand, what is the perfect set of characteristics you would want for the ideal savings tool? And we've done thousands of these over the years, and it always comes back to the same 4 or 5 or 6 characteristics. Number one, people want a competitive return. If we're waving a magic wand, we want to earn as much money as we can, right? But what people want in a savings tool is they want guarantees. How can I get a competitive return and know that it's going to be guaranteed? It'll be there when I need it. And of course, if we want it guaranteed, then the whole idea behind it being guaranteed is it's got to be liquid so that we can get it when we need it. When we need to buy a car, when we need to send our kids to college, when we need to buy a rental property, when we need to make an investment in our business. It's got to be liquid where we can get to it. And as we talked about in a perfect world, understanding how taxes are increasing in the future and the impact that has on us, in a perfect world, it would be great if it were tax-free. If I'm a business owner, if I'm an individual, one of the biggest concerns we have, if I'm a professional, doctor, dentist, lawyer, they want it to be creditor protected. So again, we're waving our magic wand. And then Jim's going to talk about this, but probably one of the most important things on this list is what we call uninterrupted compounding. Knowing that your money is growing every day, every week, every month, every year. Nelson Nash used to sip his coffee when he was talking to me and said, Justin, no matter what happens in the stock market today or with my real estate, my money went up today. And that's a great thought. If we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that our money was growing despite what was happening in the economy, Jim, there's a lot of peace that could come from that. And it gives you a lot of peace of mind. So these are characteristics that we see often for the ideal place that we want to save money we can't afford to lose or we don't want to lose. Now I want to contrast that just a little bit with the number one place that people are parking money today. So Jim, the latest studies that I saw, there is almost $18 trillion in 401ks and IRAs and qualified plans. And when you look at that and you walk through it, certainly there's an opportunity to get a competitive return. But I want to ask you guys, is it guaranteed? No, absolutely not. We've learned that in the last 6 weeks. Is it liquid? Unless you fall between 59.5 and now 72, that magic, 12-year window in there, there are restrictions on it. Is it tax-free? Of course, we know that we got to pay tax on the growth when we pull it out at whatever our rate is. In most states, it is creditor protected. However, we also know that there's not uninterrupted compounding. So the number one place people are parking money today in our country, almost $18 trillion, Jim, they get 2 of the 6 characteristics that we identified as being ideal. Let's take it one step further. Let's look at savings accounts or CDs, money markets, things of that nature. Today, there is almost $10 trillion parked in saving type accounts. Would you believe, again, only 2 of the 6 characteristics? Certainly not a competitive return because you can't even get 1% hardly on a savings account today, but it could be guaranteed by FDIC. In most cases, it is liquid, so you can get to it. But if you get 3 pennies in earnings, you got to send, a couple of those pennies back to Uncle Sam because it's taxable. So your net is not great on that at all, for sure. And you're not getting creditor protection, and there's certainly no uninterrupted compounding. So again, the number 2 place people are parking their savings dollars today, warehousing that, only gives us 2 of the 6. The third place, so we're going to call this a bond alternative. Maybe it's a bond mutual fund or individual bonds. I'm going to go quick here because I don't want to eat into Jim's time. But again, you might get a competitive return, but it's not guaranteed. It is liquid, so if you need to get to it, you just call our office. We can sell it, and in 3 to 5 business days, it's in your account. But there's not any tax advantage on that. Even municipal bonds, you could potentially pay capital gains if there's appreciation. So there's not uninterrupted compounding, and there's no creditor protection. What was amazing to me, Jim, if you would hold up that book for those that hadn't seen it.
There you go.
This is a book, guys, that if you haven't read it, you need to get a copy of it. In fact, Jim, I don't mind. If you send me or Jim your email, we'll send you one.
Absolutely.
It's that important. This book right here changed my life financially. It was a workbook for a 10-hour course that Nelson Nash, who, like Jim said, passed away a year ago, taught us. I got the privilege. Jim saw him as much as I did. I probably saw Nelson 20 times through his class. that walk through that workbook. You need to get that and read it. It needs to become top on your reading list. And what Nelson showed us is when done the right way, when structured the right way, as a savings tool, you can get all 6 of the characteristics we described. You can get a competitive return. In fact, on the second page of a policy, it actually gives you what your return will be. And the second characteristic, it actually puts it in writing and guarantees it. There is a contractual guarantee in a properly structured whole life policy. I don't know of anywhere else, many places that you can get that. It also tells you on that same page that you have access to the money before anybody else. It's completely liquid. So you get a competitive savings type return that's 100% contractually guaranteed with a liquidity function. And when structured properly, when you're working with the right professional, there's no income tax on it. Jim, have you ever gotten a 1099 for earnings in your policy?
I have not.
Me either. 100% creditor protected. And what Jim's going to show you, one of the biggest features is the power of compounding interest now is working for you versus working against you in a taxable account. So you now have uninterrupted compounding as your friend, and you become a partner with the insurance company in their portfolio and in their earnings. And guys, I'm here to tell you that when you become an owner of a business versus a customer, we all know that there's a lot of benefits that go along with that. And so we teach people how to become an owner, how to set up a system that they own, that they control, and also how to partner with the insurance company. So this is just a little interesting graph. I try to keep it simple, but if you look at this, the blue line represents the total stock market going back to the year 2000. And then the yellow-green line, I'm a little colorblind, Jim. Maybe you can tell me what it is. I struggle with yellows and greens, but that's the bond market index. And what you will see is the two are almost identical. Now, that's not going to be that way permanently, but the thing that I will tell you that if I'm going to buy bonds for my portfolio, or if I'm going to save money somewhere, if I'm going to have a liquidity place to park money, I want to partner with the insurance company because they buy bonds more than anyone in the world. They're better at it than I am. They can go out and buy it in bulk and get discounts. So why won't I partner with them, become an owner with the insurance company versus a customer at somebody else's bank? So those dividends, so those profits can accrue to me. And I can have the liquidity to use it anytime I want it for future investment. And if you're wondering who else is doing that and why haven't you heard of that before, let's go back to David Walker, who was the Comptroller General of our country, the same guy that is a trustee of the Social Security Fund. And here's what he told us on our call and wrote in a letter addressed to us. And it said, I personally have provided peace of mind, certainty, security, and control for my wife and myself by utilizing a significant portion of our retirement savings to purchase products from financially strong mutual insurance companies. That's the guy that controlled the money for the country, understanding what's happening with taxes, understanding what's happening with the economy, and wanting to build certainty for his family. And if there's one word that you take away, or two words that I want you to take away from today, because I know you won't remember much of what I said, but I want you to take away certainty and control. If you can build certainty and control for your money, for your savings, then you're going to be ahead of 90% of the people that are out there. And if you're wondering who else might have done this, let's take a look at a couple of success stories. Number one, everybody knows the Golden Arches. Ray Kroc, if you ever watched the movie about how he took over McDonald's, you'll see that he couldn't get a bank loan. So he borrowed money from his life insurance contract and used that to keep the business in motion while he was building and growing the franchise. Jim, I'd say that he probably got a pretty good return on that. What would you say?
I think he did. What was his rate of return on his insurance contract during the time he was buying McDonald's with his cash value?
The answer is who cares?
That's right. That's right. That is the answer.
But he was earning, right? And the same is true for Walt Disney. You guys have heard this story. Could not get a loan, believed in his idea so much that he borrowed money against his insurance contract to get Disney World started and off the ground. And I'm going to share one more with you before I turn this over to Jim. You guys go out and Google it. Any city, Jim, that I go in, I'm amazed, whether it's small town USA or New York City, the biggest, the best, the prettiest buildings in town are always the banks themselves, right?
Absolutely.
And as Nelson taught us how to do this, and Jim, you know the answer. The number one place, the number one group of people that purchase these types of policies as savings tools that are heavy on cash, low on death benefit, so that they can get the certainty, are the banks themselves. They take as much as a third of their earnings, their retained earnings, what's called their tier one capital, and they put it in the same things that Jim and I own and that you're hearing about today. You can look it up. It's called BOLI. It stands for Bank Owned Life Insurance. So Google it anytime. Every bank that you know has it on their balance sheet, and they're doing the same things with their profit that we're talking to you about and that Ray Kroc did and that Walt Disney did. So if you don't take anything away from this call, just as a savings tool itself, understand the benefits. Get with the person that invited you, because there's some inherent benefits that can enhance your financial situation. And now I want to turn it over to probably one of the best guys I know, a guy that has used this to buy businesses, to create revenue streams. He's taught me several things on how to do it. And that's my buddy, Jim Oliver. Jim, take it away, bud.